Hey everybody, got a fun one for you today. It's Marty Velas from Marty Velas? Velas? I'll correct that here in a second. From Fanatic Brewing here in town. I don't know, he's got a fun history and stuff like that. I've known the guy for a couple of years now. Through other business practices, and he's one of those painfully easy to like people. So you'll get that on the show today, I'm sure. We're Almost Agreement, almostagreement@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Our website is up and running. It is almostagreement.com. You can go there for almost all the episodes. I'm working my way back to the calendar. I have a handful left to get uploaded, but this one will be on as soon as it's ready. We've got Gwen McKenzie later on today. I've got Lauren Ryder at the end of the week with her cousin from Fort Wayne, Indiana, so we can see what they say about that baseball stadium thing from their perspective, as well as a few more lined up in the big show on Saturday as well. So we've got a lot going on, and we're going to get right down to it. So we're Almost in Agreement. Check us out, and introducing Marty Velas, everybody.
Hey, good morning, Seth.
Hey, buddy. All right, let me get this out of the way. We'll skip that, and we'll come back to that music later. It's my favorite thing I created. Well, that's not true. My kids are kind of cool, but
nice.
So, anywho, I don't know. Like I've seen the origin story, and I've heard it a few times. But for our listeners who haven't, give us the 5-minute history of Marty.
Oh dear. So, well, do you want me to jump to my Knoxville chapter? Or?
No, I think you're because I know there's a big chunk in California, and then you spent a bunch of time in Europe. I think that's important for the story. We could make it 8 minutes if you want.
Okay. Well, so started home brewing in 1977 as a teenager, and this was due to my exposure to some really good beers visiting family in Czechoslovakia. So at that time, 77 was kind of the nadir of the American brewing industry. We had very little to choose from. They were all pretty much light lagers and not very interesting. So I didn't think that I liked beer, but after having the Pilsners and whatnot over in Europe, I, like many of my contemporaries, decided that we do indeed like beer. We just like good beer. So when I got back stateside, I asked my dad, hey, where do you find beer like that? Because we'd have a beer after working in the yard once in a while. It was a European thing. Keep in mind, I was 17. And he said, well, you can't. So I said, well, can I try making it? I was always kind of a do-it-yourselfer kid. And he said, yeah, knock yourself out, just not literally. So I went to the Yellow Pages. It's a thing. There's a copy of it in the Smithsonian. It's a big old book that had numbers and of businesses, and I looked under beer and brewing. Turns out there was 8 miles across the San Fernando Valley where I lived was a shop called the Home Beer, Wine, and Cheese Making Shop. So I pointed my 67 Mustang in that direction, made it, and met the proprietor. So he got me hooked up with all the paraphernalia. Keep in mind, it was not legal at that time in California.
Right, because that's one of the things I want to talk about as we get later into this, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was nuts. So there were a couple of states, limited extent. Winemaking was never made illegal, so go figure. Anyway, I got hooked up with a starter set, and he encouraged me to join the club that was based there called the Maltos Falcons. Little play on words. It was just a handful of old men making really good beer, and under the auspice of a fellow named Merlin Elhart that worked for Stroh's nearby. And he was an expatriate German, was getting us fresh malt and fresh hops and liquid yeast, which was unheard of back then for homebrewers. Homebrewers back then were making beer out of mutton, Weizen syrup, pre-hopped with Red Star yeast. So it wasn't very good. We were making really good beer. And so I glommed on.
So time out. Let me interrupt. I apologize. So you guys, this was like a underground. Was it? What was the legalities on that? Like your club?
It was not legal. I mean, it wasn't enforced.
Have you checked on like the statute of limitations? Because I know you've told this story before.
Yeah, they're passed.
Are you allowed back in California?
But what's that?
Are you allowed to go back into California?
Oh heck yeah! I was there 2 weeks ago. So skiing in Mammoth and visiting family, but I digress. So anyway, I kind of gravitated towards a couple of the Falcons that were making lager, because that's what I was interested in, was making lager beer. and got a leg up there. So after that, I finished high school, went to university, studied engineering, worked in aerospace, yada, yada, yada. Fast forward to the mid-'80s, I applied for a job at the first microbrewery, back then craft brewery now, in Torrance, California, called the Alpine Hofbrau. It was set up under the auspice of a Bavarian company called the Hofbrauhaus Traunstein, which is just between Munich and Salzburg. So they hired me the next day. I gave my 2-week notice at Hughes Aircraft Aerospace, and that was, rest is history. I haven't looked back since. So my friends were telling me, "You're an idiot. You've got a 401k, you've got tenure at this place, and making good money. You're going to take a pay cut and lose your benefits." And so I said, "Yeah, you're right." But my fiance at the time said, "If you don't do it, you're an idiot, because you'll be kicking yourself for the rest of your life." So, yeah, like I said, I bit the bullet. I drank the Kool-Aid, and here I am.
I think you made the Kool-Aid in this version of the story, but and so then what gets you here?
So yeah, that's chapter 2. After working at Alpine for a number of years, I was sent to Bavaria to do a journeymanship, and when I came back, I took over as brewmaster there, worked another few years, and then I kind of got dragged into a consulting career, because there were a lot of little brew pubs in Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, Huntington Beach, and along the coast that wanted a lager beer but really weren't set up to make it. So they were buying it from me off the shelf and renaming my Alpine Light and Hellas Manhattan Beach Blonde and Huntington Beach Blonde and Redondo Beach Blonde. So they said, "Hey, Marty, can you make us a Bock beer? Can you make us a Märzen beer?" And I said, "Yeah." So I would start selling them recipes and go over in their little pubs and brew them. And since Alpine wasn't really growing by leaps and bounds, I decided to just go into consulting full time, which I did. I got to set up breweries all over the States, and first one in Japan, actually, which was pretty cool. Worked in South Africa, worked in Hungary. So that was a lot of fun. And one of my projects happened to be in Knoxville, Tennessee. Well, I didn't know anything about Knoxville. I thought it was where they kept the gold. But apparently that's a little farther up north in Kentucky somewhere. So, I was asked to set up a brewery. Met the guy at a conference, and I think it was in Oregon, Portland, Oregon at the time. So he picked our company that I consulted for, came over, set it up, trained the brewer, and went away. I was working in Fredericksburg, Texas a lot, and I did the Japan project that year in '94. And then he called me a year later and said, "Hey, we want to build another one in Gatlinburg. Can you come and help us?" So I did, and it kind of led to an extended consulting project, and ended up getting offered a position on staff and took it. And that was 20 years ago.
But so what about what about this one was different, that you wanted to stay in Knoxville and not all the other 100 places you built breweries in?
So that's a great question. I had set up and was running a brewing school in Hermosa Beach called the American Craft Brewers Academy. And a couple of fellows that went through my school were from Sonoma, Glen Ellen, and their family had grown the Glen Ellen wine label. And they wanted me to be their brewmaster at the time. Pretty much anybody I consulted to said, "Hey, can you be our brewer?" And I said, "Nah, I'm good. I'm based in LA, flying all over the world. I'm having a good time, making good money, but thank you, flattering." However, at the time, my wife and I wanted to start a family, and living on airplanes and hotels was not conducive to starting a family. So we started considering these offers more seriously. And the two major ones that were on the table at the time were one in Sonoma and one here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so we opted for the Knoxville offer. And I didn't know if it would be, a year or two, get Gatlinburg up and running and then bounce. But like I said, over 20 years later, here we are. We decided this was a great place to raise a family, and it turned out to be true. I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are sophomores at UT, boy-girl twins, Paul and Zoe. And Davey's graduating from West High this year, hopefully. Knock on wood.
With all the school stuff going on, who knows what's going to happen? Because again, for us at the show, like the general premise, we'll get into some of the politics and government issues that you have to deal with in the business and stuff like that. But like I'm a transplant to Knoxville as well, and I wouldn't leave I'd leave for a good amount of money, but it'd have to be a good amount of money. I mean, I like it here, especially good place to raise a family. Taxes are decent, all that kind of stuff. And so that part of the story was very interesting to me in the sense of you've got all the options in the world apparently to go wherever you want to settle down and raise a family, and you pick Knoxville, and so that's always curious to me. And I'm a big fan. Like the only thing that I don't know if you heard about this yet. Apparently, with this multi-use stadium project, we're getting a soccer team too. I know you're a big soccer fan.
Yeah, and I did not hear that. I'm delighted to hear it. I still play soccer 3 days a week right now, but and I'm always curious to me that we've got some of the best high school programs here, Bearden and Farragut, and they have to leave to go play in college. So I understand it's a Title IX thing that we didn't have a men's soccer team here, but it was kind of sad that these guys couldn't stay home and play soccer for us.
Yeah, and as U.S. soccer ebbs and flows, for lack of a better word, that's one of those to me is like I'm a passive soccer fan. I'm not a huge fan. I like the game. Like World Cup, I get super excited. Like I will set aside time to watch World Cup. Big tournament.
It's a spectacle. It's like Indy, even if you're not a race fan.
Yeah, but
like at Indy.
Yeah, one of my neighbors is a big he's Mexican from Mexico, and so he's a big soccer fan, and so he's got like all the different streaming services. So we'll be hanging out there just watching random soccer games from all over the world, and it's fun. But there's something like I don't know, maybe what is the national pride thing or whatever. But there's something about the World Cup that that has it's just that it's got a, like you said, it's got the whole spectacle to it, and the countries and battles and all that kind of stuff, and I like it. So yeah, so to go into some more of our format on it, it's like, so I was Shane Todd is my neighbor, and our kids go to school together, and so I run into him and talk to him every once in a while, and he was telling me the other day when I saw him that some state law changed to benefit you guys. Can you speak on that for me a little bit?
Is that the self-distribution bill?
Yeah, I believe that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, so it makes sense, and that varies from state to state. When I was in California, even back in the 80s, we were allowed to self-distribute throughout the state, which made sense. The wineries can do that too. So for the small breweries that want to be in the market, that's very fortuitous because the self-distribution is kind of the only way to make a margin on packaged beer and get into restaurants and pubs and the markets. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and it will help a lot of the small breweries that are willing to invest in the infrastructure to self-distribute. There's a lot involved, and I have a lot of respect for the distributors that are established. I'd like to see more independent distributors, and I'm starting to see more. We just signed with one in Nashville, so we're excited about that. But and I would not propose to distribute that far away, but adjoining counties certainly, right, that are accessible with a small fleet and a staff really helps, because you maintain that margin. And for us, we pretty much break even when we sell to distributors because we have to sell at such a low price point.
Right, so it's almost marketing in that sense when you go through one of the big distributors. So let's back up just a second for context for people that don't know. So prior to this bill, which I guess doesn't go into effect until July because everything that they do, actually I don't know, maybe this one's special, but anytime Nashville does anything, it's either goes into effect July 1st or January 1st. So this one's passed, and it'll go into like July 1st. So, but again, for context for the people, because my day job is with one of these distributors that you probably aren't a big fan of, which is fine.
No, like I said, I respect all of them. For us with our structure, it wasn't a good fit. But don't get me wrong, I have nothing against the distributors in our area. They do a great job. It's just we're kind of a unique formula, and that relationship, it's not a great fit. It's a right. Square peg in a round hole for us.
But so historically speaking, you could distribute inside county, but not outside county.
Correct. That's
Okay,
Tennessee franchise law.
Okay, so that's like, all right. So this goes into effect, and you could self-distribute throughout the state. Which, like you said, it's not going to be like you're going to send a truck down to Chattanooga every week, but you'll find somebody more local to help you with the localities. But you can at least get like the big 5 counties around us on your own and save margin.
A lot of us will take advantage of that. And again, if holding on to that margin can make the difference between being solvent and just breaking even.
Right, because packaged beer is it's a thin game anyway. When you go to the grocery store and pick up a 6-pack, generally speaking, a 6-pack of craft beer is what, $10, $11 somewhere in there. Usually the case cost to the grocery store is like $30, $35. So you sell all 4 6-packs at $42. As a grocery store, you're making $7 a case. That's the grocery store side of it. I don't quite understand the distributor side of it and where they're making money, but
well, they just automatically tack on between 28 and 35%, period. So
if you would normally sell a case to a distributor at 25, they're going to make it 30, give or take.
They actually work on margin, not on percentage. So it ends up being more than that.
Gotcha.
So honestly, if you back up, and you have to kind of back into this, so that's where I develop my manufacturing price, is so that when they add their 30% and Kroger adds their 30%, that it lands on the shelf in a range that's approachable or that's competitive.
Right.
So I've seen some of my contemporaries get out there and they're proud of their stuff. They charge it accordingly, but it lands at $12.99, and that's a good way to get ignored on the shelf. I don't care how good the beer is to be that far out of the range. So typically, right now here in the Southeast, you're seeing $8.99 is not unusual. And keep in mind, Seth, that we're competing with Lagunitas and Sierra Nevada and Sam Adams,
right?
And they're at $8.89, $8.99. $8.49. So most of the small crafts wind up being $9.99 or even $10.99, which is okay. I mean, $1 or $2 if you really like the beer, that's not inordinate. But you can't really go much higher than that. So you have to kind of back into that.
Right, for sure. Because I mean, again, day job for me. I'll go and be working, and some of the beers that I distribute, I'll see some of the pricing on that. I'll be like, yeah, I'm curious, but I don't know if I'm that curious. Quite often.
Then you go to the pick 6 and see if it's worth it.
Right, and the special scam for everybody out there listening, the best way to get a bunch of good beers is to do a pick 6, and people like me who have to clean up after you get upset, but just take them out of the 6-pack. If they're not in the little thingy, just take them out of the 6-pack.
Yeah, do a bottle share.
Yeah,
that's kind of poor form. Retailers don't really appreciate that.
No, they don't. Like, we have a couple brands that are 4-packs. They're 6x4-pack cases, and I got yelled at an Ingles once because people kept taking out of the 4-pack because it was like a $12 4-pack on the shelf, and people were taking out and putting their 6-pack and paying $10 for a 6-pack.
Oh, yeah.
So they were losing money. It's like, well, sell them a pizza and you're fine. Relax. It's not that big a deal. It's moving product and it's getting them in the door. If they figure out how to scam you a little bit, they're still buying other stuff, so you're still going to make some money off them.
Yeah, and if they like the one bottle, they may come back and get the 4-pack next time.
Well, that's us. But there was definitely a person that was taking the 4-packs apart and loading them into the 6-packs. So they're getting a 6-pack for $10 that would have been a 4-pack and a half for $20. So they figured out how to get half price. I'm not telling anybody to do that. I'm just saying it's been done.
There's always a loophole.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things for me that I could imagine is one of the big headaches for you and other small brewers when you get into packaging and try to get into the grocery stores is they have some super complex systems as far as their inventory management and stuff like that, and barcoding and all that craziness. Is that something that you've had to kind of learn on the fly, or is that something that you got back in the day and you just adjusted it over time?
No, I mean, I've always just been a craftsman. I've had to learn the business kind of on the job, as it were. So that it's not rocket surgery. A lot of it's common sense, but what really gets me is all the taxes and all the fees and all that. It's pretty daunting. So people don't realize or appreciate what goes into that bottle of beer. It's not just liquid and aluminum or liquid and glass. It's there's a lot of taxes and labor and everything that goes into that.
For sure, and especially you get into I don't know if does beer fall under the syntax category from the distributor side of it? I don't know this part of it, or is it all?
No, not currently. It's been discussed and promoted, but no, it doesn't qualify for that.
So in the fan base, you don't have to deal with the other fun part of taxes at the restaurants and stuff that you've dealt with in the past, have you? Because I remember that from the bar.
We still have sales tax. We're still
right.
We're still responsible for state sales tax.
Yeah, I remember when I was in the bar having to do the liquor tax difference and keep track of all that stuff, and just the amount of time it took to try to make sure we were paying our taxes correctly, so that we could not lose our licenses and stuff like that and stay open was always a pain. So I don't know. We've been talking about some other stuff. So like when you decided, because you were with the one that brought you here and you stayed here, and you were with them for a hot minute, what, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, closer to 20.
Yeah, and so when you decided to make it yours instead of brewing somebody else's beer for them, like, I don't know, walk me through that and why you are where you are physically, as well as what got you to just be like, you know what, I want it to be mine with my name on it, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it was always a dream of mine, as it is with most home brewers, come craft brewers. So one of the reasons that I left the brewery in California is that they were kind of plateaued, and I'm always needing a challenge. I'm always needing, stimulation. So that's why the consulting was very attractive to me. And then in this case, I'm very proud of the brewery division that I built for the restaurant group. But again, they weren't growing anymore. They weren't building any more breweries. And again, in the back of my mind, this had always been a dream of mine. So I figured it was good timing. Would have preferred if my kids were a little bit older, but they didn't need me that much anyway. They were good to go. And so I decided to take the leap. And it's been amazing. COVID has been a little bit of a challenge, but we're holding our own, and I'm really pleased that my colleagues here in Knoxville and the area seem to be surviving and weathering it, because that was a big concern that with the hospitality industry,
right.
It put a great burden on us. So I think everybody's kind of weathered it and ready to go back to normal.
So, I mean, for you specifically, other than, I mean, the forever under construction fan base finally gets open and then gets shut down almost immediately.
Yeah, we were going great guns for 3 weeks, and then closed down voluntarily, and then a couple of weeks later by edict. And we're fortunate enough to reopen in May, and I decided just to open Friday, Saturday evenings with just me, my wife, and my son. He's our star bartender, just to see how things played out, because I didn't want to hire back on and open up and then have to close down again, because they kept threatening more shutdowns. So that's really where we are now. We have added open mic night, comedy night on Thursdays. So we're Thursday through Saturday, pretty much 5 to 10. So the curfews didn't really affect us, because we're kind of out here on the lunatic fringe of the corridor. So it's not like we're in the heart of downtown where we needed to stay open till 1 a.m.
Right.
And in the meantime, we're doing grilling $5 Angus burgers. We've got $3 pint specials on our 37917 light lager and things like that. So people are starting to find us and starting to tell their friends. And we've got the outdoor patio going, the flat grill, and the pub, I think, came out really good. I think it's got a nice vibe. People are digging it, And
I need to make an occasion.
Big.
I got in there a couple times under construction, but I haven't seen it since it's officially open.
Yeah, come
I know what it looks like. That was about the smoothest plug that I've ever had on the show. Of somebody just seamlessly transitioning into. What's the address? I didn't hear the address in that. Just while we're doing it.
2735 North Central. So we're right across from Chicken City. Everybody knows where Chicken City is, and we're half a block north of Elst on the same side of the street. So we're developing a good symbiotic vibe between Elst. People will walk back and forth between Elst and here. It's that close. And then we've got Steamboat Subs and Nora Pizza, and then we've got our burgers going here, so people can eat as well. And I think a lot of people in this area are appreciating that, because they don't necessarily want to drive downtown and deal with parking and having a few beers and having a drive. So I think the ones here in the north part of the city will get our share.
I'm just thinking what we need to do is we need to put like a trebuchet or something on top of the building. And we need to launch some, just every once in a while when you have a bad batch or something doesn't go right and you got some sour beer that's not working right, we can just launch some, quarter barrels over the train tracks and see if we can hit the Eagle distributor from there just for fun.
Yeah, you'd probably hear from KPD and KUB real quick. But I like it.
We're here to have a good time. Relax, people. I mean, I don't know. There's bad jokes in there considering KPD. KPD's got better stuff to worry about than you having a spat with Eagle, if we're honest about it. And I remember talking to you a while back, as far as they've been doing some construction on Central there, and they stopped the renovation just short of where you guys are or something like that. How much do you get input when they start having conversations about stuff like that, or is it just kind of you deal with what they do? City county wise as far as construction projects, because there's been a lot of effort into getting Central all the way from downtown to be a more functional, business friendly kind of viaduct, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think it'll happen. We're in an industrial zone right here, and north of Baxter or Woodlawn, I guess. There's not much going on. I think they're, maybe at some point when the economy's a little better, that they'll. But they redid our sidewalks and they did a fabulous job. I didn't think I'd see that while I was here, and the streets have been paved all the way up through towards Fountain City. So there's progress being moved. There's pride of ownership here and there in spots. So yeah, it's happening. They're talking about bringing the trolley back, or they were before COVID.
Right.
So that'd be kind of fun. But yeah, we're still the redheaded stepchild
portion of town. Yeah, but I mean that's the game. You got to get in there. We're in a building that you can afford. You could have put it downtown, but then you wouldn't have lasted 6 months because the rent's so ridiculous.
That's exactly right.
And so yeah, because that's one of the things. I am trying to prepare my brain to get into the budget season that the city, county, and school board's about to do, and those kind of projects, as far as how and why certain projects get on the budget and then get done, is something that I'm always interested in. And I know part of it's the community's asking for it and stuff like that, but the planning part of city, county is always something that I don't understand. Why? I understand that it's a needed thing. I just don't understand why they do the things the way they do it. So that's one of the things I'm trying to figure out with the show. But I don't know. So I don't know. Like I said, we're generally a politics and governance show, and I'm trying to see if I can figure out how to apply my conversation with you on it. Because we talked about taxes a little bit. We talked about the road projects there a little bit. Did you have was it a hard time at all to get your permits and stuff in place, or you had enough experience with the 10,000 you'd done consulting that it wasn't that big a deal?
Yeah, no, it was actually, so the county and the state were very, very accommodating because when we got started in 2015, there had already been some precedents set. So it wasn't like you'd go up to the counter and they say, I have no idea what you're trying to do. And so we kind of skirted that. And like I said, they realize that it's a viable industry and it's bringing tax money into the area and employing local people. So
right.
They were a little bit more sensible than some other areas. So we also have a very good relationship. CABA, the Knox Area Brewers Association, has a really very good working relationship with Visit Knoxville and the city county in that respect, as far as tourism is concerned, because that's a huge theme now is craft breweries. People come into a new area, and they want to check out the local craft breweries because they're everywhere and they're all different and fun, and so they've incorporated the local craft breweries into the tourist trade.
So do we have a local brewery trail on the Visit Knox page?
We've got the Knoxville Ale Trail. And Zach Roscoff was always in the news. The mayor, he spearheaded that, and it's very well entrenched now.
Well, that's cool because I'm that way. I'll go out of town and I'll be like, what's one that's local? Maybe not go to the brewery itself, but when I'm in the grocery store of filling up the condo we're staying in for vacation or whatever, I'll go and I'll be like, this one's here. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fun. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing that the industry as a whole I find fascinating in that aspect. It's like every week I'm like, there's got to be a ceiling here somewhere. But then another one opens and a new brand shows up out of Middlebrook or I don't know, some random place. Like, oh, this is a new brand. Never heard of that. And so like the whole premise of like I know for a fact that one of the things people, beer dorks like us do is we go in there like, I haven't seen that before. Like that is the best marketing right now, I think, in beers. I've never seen it before. And so it's like, oh, got to try it. Don't know what it is.
A lot of innovation, a lot of fresh energy and creativity. So there's kind of when you say a max, there's a max. There's kind of an accepted max, and I forget what the number is, about how much beer is going to be consumed in the United States, period. And that's been pretty steady over the last several decades. However, the diversity is growing. We have over 8,000 breweries now. That's been an exponential growth. The total volume of beer consumed is pretty much at that max, but it's the diversity and localization. So people are drinking more local, which I've always been a big advocate of, and not necessarily just going to the macro beers, day in and day out. It's still, I think, right around 15% of the beer market. So that means 85% is still macro beer. So there's plenty of room there, upside.
Right. So so there's plenty to take from the macro beer. I like that word, but because that was, I mean, like you probably when you got started back in the 70s or whatever, that's probably when shortly after the inverse happened. When you know your beer history? When did the macro beer really take over?
Oh, well, it was a process, and that was several decades. But, back in the mid-19th century, we had 5,000 breweries and a lot smaller population. So you can imagine there was a little brewery in every dwarf and every village or every sizable town anyway. So 5,000. And now we're back up to 8,000, but our population is much, much larger. And the diversity... back then you didn't see a lot of Belgian beers and Gozas and things like that. So it used to be that if you wanted good beer, you'd go to Germany, Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, Belgium, or England, or the British Isles. And now the United States is the preeminent brewing nation on the planet in diversity and innovation and quality. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't do the sours. I've tried. They're just not me.
Well, it's an acquired taste, and if you go to Belgium and taste some of the really well brewed sours, you might change your mind. That's what I had to do to develop a appreciation for them. If a beer that's not meant to be sour goes sour, and a craft brewer calls it a sour, then shame on them. It's not. That's not the way, and it's being misrepresented, unfortunately, and because of that.
Well, I think when as you referenced like innovation and energy and stuff earlier, I think it's a very American thing to do is we go hard at whatever it is. So when IPAs first started becoming a thing, stateside, it went to the hoppiest hoppy as you could, which I guess is technically West Coast. Is that's the subgenre would be West Coast IPAs, which is just like drinking a glass of hops.
If a lot of hops are good, then even a ludicrous amount is better.
Right, and that's and I think that's what turned me off to sours, is that sours went from having just like that little bit to pucker you just a tiny bit to to the very American. We're going to make it as sour as possible, and it's like when I was a kid, I liked Warheads because they're sour. But that's just not something I do with my beer. But but again, it's to the point where that's kind of the fun of the game for the exploratory beer drinkers out there, is to find these different breweries that do different versions in different ways and do it a little further than maybe they're supposed to. But you can't find out you can't find where the line is until you cross it on some things, I suppose.
I like to draw an analogy between the sour phenomena and the hot sauce craze back in the 80s, around there, the Scoville challenges, and people wrecking their palates trying to drink ghost pepper sauce and things like that. So it swings back. If you have something that's exciting and people are talking about, then you get into it, but then it swings back to something more normalized.
It's like an exploration process, and then you find out what level is the more generally palatable level, and it settles into there, and then we move on to the next thing that we go overboard on, and go from there. Because that's the thing too. It's like how do you what is the process for you guys to decide on a new style or on a new sub? Because like you got like the flannel that you did a few years back, which was a blend, and then you have the Copa that's also a blend. You're pumping out, you're doing all your packaging, you're getting it out all across the region and state now, I hope. And then you okay, well, we've got, how many we got 9 flagships, and then
we've got about 8 flagships and 16 total right now, and a lot of them are rotating. So our kind of mission statement, our raison d'etre, is that I decided, since craft beer is only 15% of the total production in the States, that I would like to, follow the philosophy that I've always maintained, is that beer is a convivial beverage. It should be, it's malt and hops. It's balanced like a piece of music, and I like the high notes, but still. I had a reputation for brewing, or developed a reputation for brewing very drinkable, balanced beers. And so my idea was for Fanatic to make beers for that other 85%, that really, because it had become a thing, it wasn't just a trend. There were a lot of American beer drinkers that wanted to drink craft beer, that all their friends were into it, but they just did not care for Imperial IPAs or double Cuckoo Cachoo Rubber Baby Bunky Bumper Stouts. That was not there. It wasn't going to happen. So the beers that I brew, they're more flavorful than the macro beers, but they're still well balanced and drinkable and approachable. And when they say, "Hey, what's your strongest beer?" I say, "Well, they're all beer strength. They're 5%. That's what beer is." And that having been said, I have an appreciation for. I love barley wine. Barley wine is one of my favorite styles, but not day in and day out. So we have introduced. We've got our flagships. I didn't even brew an IPA for the first 3 years.
I know you. I believe you told me once that you never would, or no, not you. What's his? Anyway, pardon the dog,
they didn't
everybody.
They didn't think I would, but I knew I would eventually. But I came out with a very drinkable pale ale, and I was really proud of that. So that was our hoppy beer, German Pilsner. Now I'm really proud of. And we've just introduced our GJ10 series, which is a rotating high gravity series that we're having fun with. We've got an Imperial Pilsner right now. We just finished a barley wine. We've got an Imperial IPA coming. I've got a Scottish Wee Heavy, a Triple Bock, a Belgian Triple. So these are all going to be our high gravity offerings, and they'll rotate. Every time we run through a small batch, we'll do a different one. So people are enjoying that. And those are served in half pints, but they're all around 10% in different styles. So now that we have a foundation, I'm starting to have fun and show off a little bit and say, yeah, we can do that too. But day in and day out, we want people to associate us with very drinkable beers.
Right. It always bothers me when people's like core question is how strong is it? It's like, well, just go get a bottle of Jack and leave it alone if all you want to do is get hammered.
Yeah, have a shot and chase it with a good beer.
Yeah, that's how I sit on it too. It's like for me personally, one of my things is like around 8% is when I can taste alcohol as a distinct flavor. Outside of it's just part of like under 8%, it's part of the whole bouquet. Like I have a drink. Where at about 8% is when it's like, oh, that's alcohol. Like I could taste it as a distinct flavor, and that's where I'm like I like IPAs a lot, but I don't like Imperials because they cross that threshold, and I can taste the alcohol as a distinct, separate flavor. And that's for me where I draw. What I find fascinating too is with the day job is I get to go out and see it. I find fascinating how, and I pitched it at you before, and I'll pitch it at you again right now, is that you should do a non-alc. I don't know how hard the process is, but like that's been a really popular thing because a lot of people want to get in on this thing, but they have either a personal problem with alcohol and want to avoid it, or don't want to get hammered every time they have a few beers, and they just want the social aspect of it. And so I've been surprised at how many non-alcs are out there, even especially in the craft realm, like Bush NA and all that stuff's been out, no duels or whatever forever. But as far as craft breweries getting in the game, I found that an interesting one to follow as well.
Yeah, the mechanisms to produce that are becoming more and more accessible. But the question is, my minimum batch is 1,000 gallons, and even though there is a request for it, I can't move 1,000 gallons. I am planning on releasing a couple of gluten-free products that I've been working on for years that I'm excited about, and those will be made available in small batches. But I like the seltzers too. Both the hard seltzers, but also soft seltzers. We're going to be doing mineral water and craft sodas. I kind of tricked my kids into drinking a soda that I made that was based on cane sugar, but I worked in agave nectar and stevia as a sweetener, so it's not the high fructose corn syrup. So, and they got a taste for that. So I'll be offering those at the fan base as well.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I like that. That's fun. Because it's interesting because like when you get down to the technical parts of it, there's a lot of the parts and pieces in the manufacturing process are kind of interchangeable. And so why not use it for other avenues if you have the time and space? And I don't know how big. I mean, we've discussed how big the beer market is, and it kind of stays the same. I'm sure the soda market's the same. And if you can take a 0.5% here, 0.5% there out of the soda market, that's not a bad place to expand a brand either.
Yeah. People like diversity, and we get a lot of people in here that, they're designated drivers. We offer the water and sodas and whatnot for free. So, but we'll start making those on our own.
That's cool. All right. So, again, I'm trying to run it back into government stuff, and I got nothing on you. Unless you have something specific that's not necessarily brewery related that you want to talk about that you've seen in local politics, I'd love to talk to you about it. But, I don't know, how much do you pay attention? Are you maybe that's a better way to do it? Because for me, the show turned into me and a couple buddies just talking about life in general, and it always ends up talking about a little bit about politics, and we realize how little we know about local politics, and so I just dove in and started digging into it and trying to find out more about who's sitting in what office and what office is supposed to do what kind of things, and I feel like it's one of those that we've been talking about how accessible craft beer is now. I don't find that politics and government, as much as you hear about it, is really accessible to the average person to keep up with all the parts and pieces moving. And so I'm always curious to know how other people view what they see going on in politics and government, I guess is a way to do it. So like I mentioned earlier, we're running into budget season. Like, how much do you know about City of Knoxville budget and how that's going to affect you?
Yeah, again, my head's typically down or stuck in a vat, or just buried in paperwork on my desk. So I have very little time. I kind of have to trust people like you to be the watchdogs and kind of keep an eye on anything that needs to be addressed. But my experience with city county has been phenomenal. They're very, very accommodating, very encouraging. And as far as, the state laws from Nashville, there was a huge disconnect until just recently, like our keg tax, which as a wholesaler, I have to self-distribute. I have to register as a wholesaler, and I have to pay the keg tax, which is a big chunk. It's one of the highest in the nation. I think we're number 1 or 2 in that. And I think for the craft brewery, since it's become a very staunch industry segment for Tennessee and the Southeast in general, that they should definitely address that and maybe ease up on that a little bit, because it does take a big chunk of the margin from little guys like us.
And so what is so it's a per keg sold tax?
Yeah, it's $35 per barrel, so it winds up being about $17 per keg. So every keg, if I sell a keg for $90 to the distributor, I have to pay $17 on that. Or if we self-distribute, we have to pay $17. If I sell it to the distributor, they pay the $17.
Right, and then they pass that off to the bar or
correct,
or restaurant or whomever from there. Yeah, that's
and most of them around the country are $6, $8.
That is pretty big. I wonder what the genesis of that was. I'm sure it was back in pseudo-prohibition kind of conversation. And it's just cause that's one of the things to me is, like, as I dig into stuff, there's so much stuff that's just been around forever, and nobody knows how it
blue
got
laws.
there. Yeah,
they call them blue laws.
Yeah, so nobody knows how they got there. They've just been there, and for one reason or the other, there's no impotence to change it. It's just like, okay, well, it's there, whatever.
I like telling the story of this honeymoon couple. This was back about 10 years ago. Where they came into Pigeon Forge, and they were celebrating their anniversary, and they called down to see if they could get a bottle of champagne, and at that time Pigeon Forge was dry, and they said, "Oh, you'd have to go to Gatlinburg for that." So that seemed kind of absurd that they had come from out of state to celebrate their anniversary, and had a place at Pigeon Forge, and they couldn't get a bottle of champagne.
Well, that's Dolly's fault for the greatness it is Dolly. She's always been pushing that dry count or the dryness of Pigeon Forge, but we can't get mad at Dolly. She's the best.
No.
But yeah, I mean, it is definitely one of those that, especially in alcohol, the difference from state to state, which I personally, on my political philosophy, I prefer states having more control over their locality than the federal government. But that's definitely one that as you travel, the rules are different. Like, we just got wine in the grocery store, and certain states you go in the grocery store and it's a liquor store with groceries, where other states, until recently, you had a specific store that liquor and wine, and that's all they sold. And it's changing a little bit now, and the liquor stores that are going to make it and stuff like that are diversifying into beer and stuff like that where they didn't before. And so it's definitely a weird one. And yeah, especially you get into certain cities and last calls at 11 outside of the pandemic, who knows what they're doing now, but outside of the pandemic, like last calls earlier or later or changes here and there. You go to Vegas and it's never last call, that kind of thing. And, people trying to travel and the tourism part of it, people having to kind of adjust to whatever the locale is always, I'm sure, an interesting little factoid to deal with. So I don't know. Let's finish off with an official full pitch and tell everybody where they can find you, which is about every grocery store in Knoxville now, Knox County, which is most of our fan base for the show is here, super local, because all we talk about is Mayor Jacobs and Kincannon and City of Knoxville issues and Knox County issues.
Right.
So, like I said, I know we're in all the grocery stores locally. And I don't know, pitch a couple of upcoming specific events and give the address and the phone number and how to get a hold of you guys directly, so those listening can become fanatics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're at 2735 North Central, and that is just 3 miles north of downtown. We're a mile north of Happy Holler, if that helps. And we're open Thursday through Saturday, 5 to 10, and looking forward to expanding on that, as things ease up. But we do the $5 Angus or black bean burgers, $3 pint specials on the 1.7 light lager, and we've got 16 different beers. So we got the outdoor patio going. Actually have a fire pit right now, and the pub's got a nice vibe to it. People seem to be comfortable, so we're having fun with it, and we're going to be doing a series of specialty menus. Johnny G, or Johnny Tsunami, we call him. He's going to be our guest chef, and just keep track of us on Instagram or Facebook or the website. We just redid the website, so
that's a good looking website.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So, and again, we're trying to provide a variety and make a place where people feel comfortable.
And that's fanaticbrewing.com. And so here's my unsolicited, maybe not advice, but hope for you guys, because one of the things that probably one of the most upsetting things to me in the beer game locally here is our biggest visual beer in Knox County is from Johnson City, and I don't like that.
Yeah, it is what it is. You got to follow the money there.
I agree, but it's just one of those, like, to me, I would like you to be the craft sponsor of XYZ. And again, I understand it's a money thing, but like I resent that when you get to like UT stuff and the official sponsors and stuff like that, that it's one of the macros and then a non-local local. And I want to have the beer that's distributed throughout the state and region that, people come to do the ale trail, but they come specifically for the one that is the one that they know, because that's the one they found at home, non-local. Like, I want to have a flagship of Knoxville breweries, and I'm hopeful that will be you guys, because I think you guys have a specificity that other people don't. Like, you have a uniqueness of who you are versus the other breweries, and I think that's kind of that. I just like to, like, when you go to, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, you go to Boston and you want to do the local beer, you're getting Sam Adams, because that's, everybody knows Sam Adams. And so, like, this is the home of Sam Adams. You go to Fort Collins. My sister lives in Fort Collins. You go to Fort Collins, it's New Belgium time. You're going to the New Belgium brewery, and like, that brand across the country. But like, like, of all the other things that go on in Fort Collins, that's one of the things that's in Fort Collins if you're going there.
Oh yeah.
And I want one of those there in Knoxville for our breweries. I want the comparable of, I'm going to Knoxville for a business trip or whatever, but that's where Fanatic is. And I know that, and I'm in Texas or whatever. I'd love to see that here locally to have a brand that has that kind of strength in the craft beer market. And I'm hopeful that can be you guys.
Well, Seth, that's very humbling, and I appreciate that. And we will continue working very hard and diligently to be that, and there may be more than one, but we're certainly outfitted. We're the largest capacity brewery in Knoxville, and we've got a lot of upside potential. So we'll continue to do that. We may have been kind of a well-kept secret up to this point, but I think now that COVID's tapering off, I think we're ready to go to the next level. Like I said, we've got new distributors coming online. And we have a lot of fun plans. In my
non-scientific format, I think the move to having things available in cans is going to help. I like cans. I don't know why.
No, cans are the way to go. Have a lot of advantages, and really it's just been the public perception. But now cans are completely acceptable and preferred, especially if you're outdoorsy and active. Cans are head and shoulders more preferable than glass. They're not even recycling glass in the area. So you'll see more Fanatic in cans. We've got the red, the blonde, and the IPA out in the market right now, and we'll continue to do that. But thank you so much for your support and the kind words.
Oh, I don't know. I just like I said, it's just for me. I have my personal things, and that's how I like to do it. And I'm glad to talk about anything to anybody. At least for the show's sake. So, I don't know, like, I appreciate the jump. I appreciate the leap into, and I appreciate seeing, getting the chance to see the inner workings of the other side of it as, I mean, as you know, I own a business as well as do the podcast, as well as have a day job and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, I know a lot of the different parts and pieces, but to kind of have somebody to reference to, and again, for whatever reason, I feel comfortable just telling people how they should run their business from time to time. And so I like to throw ideas at people. Just go, because for me, if it happens and I can be like, hey, I told him to do that, which probably isn't true. There's probably 100 people that told you to do it. I'm one of them, but I'll go out, I'll tell my friends, I'll brag and say that it was my idea. That's how I like to do stuff. All right, so I'm going to run the outro, and then we'll chat for a second off air, and here we go.
Okay.
Marty Velas, everybody. Excuse me, I got a little lump in my throat. So, since he's a brewer and a beer guy, and he has his tap room and all that stuff, I really wanted to do an evening show so he could bring some beer and I could drink them and tell you how great they were on air, regardless of whether, of anything else. I just wanted to drink beer with Marty, but it's 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, so we're not going down that trail this time. Next time I have him back, I'm over in the studio, and we'll do it properly.
The sequel.
Yes, the sequel, and or the trilogy or any version thereof. So if you get the chance, you see them around town. Like I said, they do tap takeovers in some of the different localities. You can go get a growler at Food City or something like that from time to time. But get on their website; they'll tell you where to find them if you're not local to the central area. Make it a chance, get down there to the fan base. Like I said, I've been in there in the building process, but I haven't been in there in the flesh since it's open. So I'm excited to do that myself. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Our website is live at almostinagreement.com. Check us out there. All the episodes are available there, as well as all major podcast providers. I've got Gwen McKenzie coming up later this afternoon, as well as some other stuff going on this week. Stay tuned.